make sure that you get the most that you can out of today. We invite these speakers for all of our benefit to learn and have something to collaborate about, and we hope that they are helpful. The next thing that I wanted to talk to you about is obviously we have been sending out some information about a collaborative ebook. When we started our program, we said that we are going to collect everyone's great ideas in one space for us all to use later. A big part in being on any collaborative project is giving part and taking part. So we do have a Google form that is on our Facebook group, and Armin will link in the chat if you want to go ahead and sign up to contribute some of your lesson plans. The lesson plans follow the concept of all the modules we've been doing throughout these 10 weeks. And next week, we will all be on working on them together so you can get feedback and you can ask for help on the format and structure. But we just want to plant that seed in your mind so that you have something to ponder over the week and think about what's one lesson that you already had that you can modify based off of everything we've learned about hybrid and virtual learning, or an idea that came to you that you've tried out with your class via Pixton and you want to share with us. Whatever that is, we definitely want to use it and be able to put it in a nice organized ebook and share it with all of our participants. So please be thinking about that. Please consider doing that and signing up via the Google form. And today we are so excited to have Narrative 4 here. They are a nonprofit organization with just under 10 years of experience of working with artists and storytellers and connecting them with classes and education to help people create empathy through narratives and storytelling. Armin has a very special connection to them and has worked with them in the past. So Armin, I'll let you kind of explain that connection.
Wonderful. Thank you, Louise, and we're very happy to have Lee and Ashley. They're very active in the community of Narrative 4, and they're going to educate us more about what Narrative 4 does. But my simple understanding of it is it helps students and teachers and anyone really feel more connected to each other. And also, I think, why am I here on double? I don't know. But and this is what I actually learned about when another teacher who was working in Namibia started making these exchanges with students. And we want to introduce you to this approach of learning, building empathy, and teaching in a different way. And this is exactly why we invited Lee and Ashley to introduce us to their approach of what Narrative 4 does. And hopefully we can replicate it in some way in our countries, and we're really honored to have them with us today. So with that, Ashley or Lee, it's all you. We look forward to learning from you.
All right, thanks Armin, thanks Louise. Hi everyone, I'm Ashley Penchiaro and I'm the Northeast Regional Manager for Narrative 4, and I'm excited to be with you guys here this morning. Thank you Armin, and thank you Louise for inviting us and for this opportunity. So what we want to do is we want this to really be interactive. You know, nobody wants to sit and listen just for an hour and a half. We want to let you guys kind of experience what Narrative 4 is all about. We do have a bit of an abbreviated time, and so it's going to give you a glimpse of it, not the full experience, but we hope after this session that you'll have time to kind of engage with us further, and you can explore more about narrative resources through our web platform and through your connections here to Lee and myself. So Armin, if you could start sharing that slideshow, I'm going to walk you guys through a few opening slides that will tell you a bit of who Narrative 4 is, and also show you a quick video of our core kind of methodology, what we call our story exchange. I'm going to show you a video of it actually in practice at one of our schools here in the US. So, but first I want to tell you guys a little bit more about who we are and what we do. So yeah, Armin, you can go to the next slide. So we're Narrative 4. As Louise mentioned, we're a young nonprofit. We've only been around for about 9 years, but in 9 years' time, we've really been able to grow into a global organization with our core methodology, the story exchange, happening in countries around the world. And that story exchange is really designed with a few key things in mind. One, to help students understand that their voices, their stories, their actions, their lives matter, and that they have the power to change, rebuild, and revolutionize systems. What we know through our work is that the story exchange builds empathy for sure, but it also strengthens connections between students and other students in the classroom, students and their teachers, and it helps promote a more positive school climate and environment, which we'll talk more about as we continue. Next slide, please, Armin. So as I mentioned, we are a global organization. So currently, in just our little 9 years, we've expanded into 4 continents in over 16 countries and over 18 US states. So you can find Narrative 4 today in Narrative 4 Ireland, Narrative 4 Israel, Narrative 4 Mexico, Narrative 4 Africa, and Narrative 4 US as well. And one of the coolest things to me about this is that we've really had an opportunity through really, especially this year, in kind of working in this virtual environment to connect students from various parts of the globe. We have this community of global educators. We have this community of global students and global school partners. Like I said, my work is in the Northeast here in the US, but we have this school in New York, and they really spent this last semester connecting their students over and over again with one of our partners in Israel. So what a great opportunity for these students to chat regularly with students from another part of the world. And what was so amazing to their teachers is that the students just kept coming back and saying, you know, we're really a lot more alike than we thought we would be. So it's one of the things that we really try to emphasize in all of the partner schools that we have, is we have this global network for other teachers to connect with one another and for students to connect with each other as well. So next slide, please, Armin. So as I said, our core methodology is the story exchange. And we're going to show you a video in a moment of a story exchange in practice. And we're also going to give you the chance to experience a bit of the story exchange yourself this morning. But I wanted to break it down for you here quickly, just a little bit. So there's really 5 key points to the story exchange. First is preparing. So facilitators of the exchange, which are usually educators who have been trained as Narrative 4 facilitators, they kind of identify what is their goal for the exchange, how can we build trust, how can we set the students up for success in the exchange. And then they usually model. So they might have another teacher at the school model with them who's also been trained in facilitation, and they set the standard for the experience, helping to show the vulnerability and respect that we expect in a story exchange. And then they go into the pair and share. So you break all of the students into pairs of 2 and provide them with the time to share their stories with one another. The students would be given prompts. They can be based on a theme, based on current work in the classroom, or just general prompts that help build connection. And then the students tell one another a personal, true story based on those prompts. So after that time of pairing and sharing, all the students come back together in a circle, and everyone tells their partner's story in the first person. So if Armin and I were doing a story exchange with one another this morning, and Armin was my partner, I would say, hi, my name is Armin, and this is my story. And Armin would say, hi, my name is Ashley, and this is my story. And we would proceed to tell one another's story in the first person as though it were our own. And that practice of taking on someone else's story, putting on someone else's shoes, and then using narrative to express that, those 2 things are key in building empathy. And finally, after the exchanging of stories, the facilitator leads a discussion reflecting on the process, what it felt like to take on another person's story, to hold someone's story, and to treat it as though it were your own, and then create a sense of closure as well. Next slide, Armin. So we want to show you guys a quick video. This is at one of our partner schools here in Massachusetts. So hopefully this will translate for you guys and let you see what this looks like when you're actually doing it in person.
Hey, my name's Jose. How's it going?
The cops started to search us for drugs and guns.
I come from a very religious background. You know, my parents are Christian.
A girl was saying that she liked me.
This whole story exchange phenomenon is about empathy. It's about putting yourself in somebody else's life, their story, their shoes for a minute. And without prejudice, we have to walk in those shoes and try to remain as open-minded as we can.
Me and her were more than just friends.
Everyone in here is courageous to tell a story.
We can just go randomly. We don't have to go in any order. And then lunch comes, and there's a girl in my seat, and she gave me a love letter. All that's in my head is, I'm hungry and I need my seat.
I have always been taught a man was for a woman and a woman was for a man. But when I was around 14 or 15, I started getting feelings for another girl. I finally had to tell my mom that I liked girls. And knowing my mom, she wasn't going to take it well.
I went through the same thing with my mom when I came out to her. She disowned me. She still disowns me to this day.
You're just going up and up and up, not down, not hitting rock bottom. You're climbing up. You're becoming a star. Everybody's becoming a star. That's what I see with everybody's story.
People talk about empathy as this thing that is just this soft skill. There's nothing soft about it. It's really muscular, and this is one of the bravest story exchanges I've ever witnessed.
We've gotten a lot closer with a lot of our classmates, and we talk to each other, and we've been growing since that day. I hope for you is that you'll never have to go through that experience ever again, or ever see somebody get hurt like that. It was the best experience I've ever had.
Thank you, Ashley. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can, Lee.
Okay, thank you. Well, first of all, my name is Lee Keelock. I'm the director of global programs for Narrative 4. So I'm really happy to be here on a very early Sunday morning where I'm zooming in from Connecticut in the US. And just to see everyone's beautiful faces on the screen has made my day that much better already. So thanks for joining us. You know, I've been with Narrative 4 since the beginning, and I want to just talk a little bit about stories. Why stories? I mean, there are plenty. I'm watching the chat box, and I'm listening and I'm reading to all of the chatter. And it's right. A lot of people are already trying to use stories in their communities and their classrooms. But I think it's even more important at the moment to bring people together from different places to share a personal story from their life. We say that the shortest distance between two people is a story, and it's very, very difficult to sort of dismiss a person or not appreciate them as a human being once you know something very personal about them. Just think about it in your own life when you sit around with friends and tell stories. So imagine if you have the whole world to share stories with. It's an incredible platform for building empathy, for building emotional bridges. We call it it's our currency. This is our method. It's a sort of currency. And the thing that makes it completely different from many other sort of storytelling methods or organizations is that you have to take on the person. your partner's story as if it's your own. And there's something very visceral that happens in that transaction. But essentially, you know, it's to build empathy, right? We want people to come together. We want to connect people so deeply that they become interested in one another, right? And that hopefully that empathy then leads to some sort of action, right? That you're sort of more compelled to act on somebody else's behalf, right? If you know something deeply about them. So we bring kids together all over the world. We bring communities, adults, students. About 80% of our work is students. We connect students every single day virtually. And to Ashley's point, it's an incredible thing to witness when you bring people that don't have an opportunity to usually hang out together into the same space. And it's very easy to do now that we're on Zoom. You can go to the next slide if you don't mind, Armin. Thank you. Now, I know that there's a bunch of teachers and educators in this space and thought leaders. So I just want to talk a little bit about some of the research that we've done in the last few years. So originally when we started, it was just me running around sort of getting people to tell stories. But then we got hooked up with the Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence. Some of you may have heard of this. This is a great organization. And they helped us do some research. And essentially, we went around the entire US and we sent them a survey, and basically it asked how kids felt in school and how they wanted to feel in school, right? So 2 questions. I mean, there was a bunch, and every single demographic was represented in this research. And essentially about 80% of the emotions that kids felt in school, and this was all high schools in the US, were negative. About 80% of the emotions came back negative. People felt bored, stressed, disconnected, not valued. One of the things that the story exchange does is teach you that your voice matters, your life matters, your stories matter, your actions matter, right? So all of these things matter. And what happened was the kids that had been through the narrative 4, we sort of tagged the students that had been through story exchanges, and all of those kids in the schools, they fell far above the national average for positive emotions. So all of those negative emotions didn't exist as much with kids that had been through the narrative 4 story exchange program, because they felt connected. They felt like they were heard. They felt like they were listened to and seen and validated as humans. So, and we also measured their empathy with the University of Chicago study. We sort of tracked the empathy scale of people. And what was really interesting in that study is that kids who came in who didn't think they had much empathy or lower baseline empathy actually maintained the longest gains over the course of time. So the story exchange is a very simple, seemingly simple method, right? But it's incredibly complex in the sense that you are teaching kids how to be curious, right? Curiosity, which to me, if you're curious, it sort of smashes or breaks down this idea that you can be like, it shatters stereotypes, right? If you're curious, it's sort of the antidote to stereotypes or bias or bigotry and judgment, right? And the other thing that it does is teaches deep listening, right? Which is a skill, which is a top leadership skill. How many of us really listen to understand as opposed to listen to respond, right? So we teach people to listen, deeply listen, and hold somebody's story as if it's their own. The other thing is that it's about courage. There's nothing soft about empathy, like I said in the video. It's a skill that requires courage and bravery, and we try to set up the bravest space for people to, and the safest sort of space where people can act bravely and tell their stories. And then that promotes action. So all of these things are sort of embedded in our method. And you're going to have a little taste of that in a minute, because I'm actually going to put you in breakout rooms and we're going to ask you to tell a story. So but we can share this research with you if you like data and you're data driven, but essentially it's about human contact, right? It's about the story. And you can hit the next slide, thanks. All right. So regardless of whether it's morning, noon, or the evening where you're from, you're going to have the opportunity to tell a story. We're going to give you a little taste of Narrative 4. We're going to put you in a breakout room for about 15 minutes with a partner, and you are going to tell a story from your life. And it has to be a story about you. It has to be, yeah, that I'm looking at some of the chat. Winnie, we do have prompts. They're coming up in a second. Actually, you can put the prompts up now if you want, Armin, while I chat. But essentially, we're going to ask you to go into a breakout room and be present, right? Try to minimize the distraction if you can around you. And you are going to listen to your partner who's going to tell you a 5-minute story from their life, right? Now, this can be any story. There are 3 prompts here, but honestly, if you don't feel any of these prompts, you can tell any story that you like. One of the prompts that's been quite popular right now is this: the whole world, right, has been through a global pandemic. In fact, one of the things I wanted to say to all of you is how incredible teaching has been and difficult it has been during this time period. And I tip my hat in your direction because you've faced unprecedented odds in your communities, and I respect the daily work that you do, and I hope that you're going to capture some of these stories when you perhaps return back to school, right, or return to your communities in person. So the first prompt is, just tell a pandemic story. It could be a story anchored in joy. Where did you find inspiration or joy? The second one, everyone has an heirloom or an object of significance, or maybe it's a photograph on your phone, or a keepsake, a chain, a ring. It can be anything, and you can tell a story about its relevance to your life, right? And then the other one is just about a transformative moment in your teaching career. And the story, you're in control of the story. So don't tell any story that you don't want somebody else to hear, right? You are in complete control. So in that sense, there's a safety to it. And the other thing is, any of the stories that you hear today, because we're going to ask a couple of people to retell their partner's story in the first person, they stay in this room, right? This is a safe space in the sense that none of the stories leave this Zoom unless you have permission to tell that story outside of here by your partner. So when you get in that room, you're just going to deeply listen. You're allowed to take notes if you want, but my advice is to just listen, be present, and try to pay attention to not just what's being said, but how it's being said, the sort of nonverbal communication, and you will remember a lot. And then we're going to sort of beam you back into the main room, and we're going to ask a couple of brave people to retell their partner's story in the first person as if it is their own. So are there any questions about the next few minutes when you get sent to your breakout room? And you can type them in the chat box. I'll be looking, or you can unmute if you have a pressing question. Yep, Winnie, you're going to be with a partner. There'll be somebody else in that room that you'll meet, and you'll spend about 5 minutes each telling each other's story. You do not have to retell the story in that room. You're just listening and holding the story.
Mm-hmm. I was just going to encourage everyone, if you can, turn on your camera. It's more human. If not, it's fine. But please keep your audio on, because we don't want to leave people in breakout rooms for 15 minutes talking to themselves. They can do that the rest of, whenever they're not in Zoom, but they're expecting for you to join them in a conversation, okay?
Yeah, and Jacqueline and Brenda, yes, it's just one prompt. You can choose one prompt, one story today. We do not have the time to tell more than that. So just one story.
It doesn't need to be the same story either, right? It could be different stories, right? It doesn't have to be the same topic.
Yeah, it can be absolutely different. I mean, you can just tell. I mean, I always say, if you were going to tell a story to somebody, I mean, it's about capturing the essence, right, of a story, or revealing some of the essence of you. So just choose a story that reveals some aspect of your character. And if think of it like this, if you were going to tell this story and then we took that story and buried it in the ground, and 100 years from now, somebody else or an archaeologist dug that story up and was able to retell it, that we would learn something about you, some essence of you, some part of your character, some moment from your life that sort of tells us who you are, you know. Note, the story does not have to do with teaching. All right, I think we're good. We have this motto. It's actually a Kurt Vonnegut quote. And he says that you should be constantly sort of walking to the cliff edge, jumping and growing your wings on the way down. So that's what we're asking you to do today. Sort of take a risk, take a chance, and tell your story and hold your story, enjoy it, and have fun with it too. All right, I think that's all the direction we need.
Great. So we'll see everyone in about 15 minutes. I'm going to open the rooms. And for those who don't get moved into a room, we'll try to move you around, okay? Into your pairs. So have a great conversation. Thank you, Lee.
Yep.
Oops. Let me see here. We had some people, Lee, who joined a little bit after. So I'm trying to figure out how we'll move them. We have 4 people. Maybe I'll move them. We'll see. Okay. Okay. Move people around. I can stop sharing now. All right, so please press join if you haven't yet. We'll move you to a room. 6. Okay, great. I think got most of the room set up here. Jacqueline. Okay, Jacqueline needs someone. Okay. All right, so Lee, we got the room set up. There's maybe 1 or 2 rooms with just 1 person, but the rest are all set up. Some people are kind of coming back. Lee, I was thinking for those people who weren't able to make it into the breakout room, I was thinking to just have them maybe have a small discussion in this room. Just, could that work?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, absolutely.
All right, great. Let me just try to move this person to there. So we have Farah here, and
Hi, Farah.
And we have me, and we have Lee. What do you recommend? Farah, would you like to work with Lee for it, just to practice doing it with him, or we also have Rokayo. You can choose, Farah. Oh, Lee, do you think I can move? Let's see. Let me get this. Let's see. Rokayo, we'll move her into a room. Lee, do you think you can work with Farah, and I can just
Sure.
All right, cool. Move Rokayo to another room. So maybe you two can start, and Rokayo, I'm sending you to a room. So go for it.
Farah, how are you? First of all, you're on mute, Farah, so I haven't heard your voice yet, but you're still on mute.
Okay, now it's good. So I couldn't unmute myself before. The host didn't let me. All right. Thank you. It's nice to be here. Hi, Lee. My name is Sarah. I'm from Indonesia, and now I live in Arizona.
Nice to meet you. And I see your background has all this "What's Your Story?" digital storytelling. And so,
yeah.
What is that? Can you tell me a little bit about that? Or
oh, this is just something I like to do with Canva. So this is what I created last night before I went to bed.
Mm.
So just to have a different virtual background for this Zoom today.
Yeah, yeah. So, Farah, did you hear some of our introduction? Do you know who we are and sort of what we do, or is there anything I can answer there?
Narrative 4, and then you were talking about digital storytelling and also empathy, how everyone's story and voice are heard, and then everybody's story matters, everybody's life matters. So I like that.
Yeah. The and are you a teacher in Arizona right now, or what are you up to in Arizona?
I am actually an online ESL teacher. So I teach English for students in China, actually.
Oh, wow.
So.
Fantastic. So.
Yeah.
Well, I'm happy to, if you want to practice, I'm happy to tell a story and you tell a story, and we can, if you want, and do one of the prompts.
Or we have Wayu who just arrived. We could have Wayu and Farah do it together. Would you prefer to do that, Lee?
I'm up for anything. I would rather the participants.
Great.
I've done it many times. So
right, you're a pro. So Wayu, would you like to unmute, and we'll just keep you up to pace. You're going to share a short story.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
My name is Wahyu. I'm from Indonesia. My story during this pandemic, I was sick, but it's not COVID. Another sick. I got gastric acid, and I have to be hospitalized for a couple of days, and it was hard for me because I have 3 children and they need me. But after that, I can recover myself. Then I thank to God. Now I can be here and I'm healthy. I think it was my story.
Right. Thank you, Wahyu, for sharing your story. So, being a mom myself, I know it is hard and difficult if when our children need us and we're sick. So, yeah, I can relate to that, and I have a little girl myself, so we want to be there for our kids. So, yeah. So glad that you are well right now, and then be there with your family. Thank you for sharing about that. For me, I would like to share about I think I choose number 2. So an object that is meaningful in my life. So what comes to my mind is my passport. That's the object. Why? Because my passport has given me the opportunity to visit Australia. So that was my first going abroad experience when I was 20 years old already. I graduated and I got my bachelor's degree, and I represent my province, Central Kalimantan, Indonesia, to go to a youth exchange program called Australia-Indonesia Youth Exchange Program. And that experience is a once in lifetime experience to me, because it helped me to be who I am today. Because I had to be away from my family for the first time for 4 months, and then I had to live abroad and to stay with a new family for temporary, and also I have to work with my team, my friends from Indonesia as well. So there were 18 of us from different provinces, and that I had ups and downs in there as well, in the exchange program, because even though we are going abroad, we're in Australia, in a new place, and everything is exciting. But then again, I also had this new things as well that I experienced in myself, like when I feel like, oh, I'm not good enough, and they did better than me and things like that. I started to compare myself, and I didn't think that I'm a good leader and things like that. And I had this also in me. So I was like, I remember I had a like kind of argument with one friend from West Kalimantan, and she's like, you have to push yourself, and when we got some projects to do and things like that, right? So where we have a deadline and things like that. And when I was so down, and she's like, come on. So she tried to lift me up, and that's the thing that I can still remember now. So it was in 2010. So yeah. So that's one thing. And the other thing also, my passport brought me here to Arizona, and I met my husband when I got the chance to attend college in Southfield Community College in Arizona. So that's in 2013, but I met him in 2014, 3 months before I left the U.S. So yeah, my passport has brought me, so many great moments that formed me today. Thank you.
Nice story from you. So you have been in Arizona since 2010, yeah?
No, 2010 I was in Australia. I went to Arizona 2013 and 2014 for the scholarship that the U.S. Department gave me. And I have to go home because it was only for 1 year school year experience. And so yeah, me and my husband, before, we had 2 years of a long distance relationship before I came back in 2016, and then we got married, and yeah, now I live here until this year. Thank you.
I have a question for both of you. Thank you first of all for sharing your stories. And am I pronouncing your name? Is it Wayu? How do I pronounce your name?
Okay, it's actually like it's difficult to pronounce in the middle of my name. Yeah, it's okay. You can pronounce it Wahyu or Wayu. It's okay because I think it is difficult to pronounce ha like that. Wahyu. Actually.
Wahyu.
Yes, that's right. Okay.
Well, thank you for both sharing. It was, and I'm glad you're feeling better. So that must have been scary. Yeah. How do you have questions for each other? How comfortable would you feel retelling each other's stories?
Okay. I think
I'm not saying you have to. I'm just asking how comfortable would you be?
Do you mean I have to ask question to Vera so I can be Vera to tell a story in the Vera perception, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so well, I want to ask to Vera about what's your purpose to go to Australia and Arizona? Is that for your education or just for your jobs?
So the first one, when I went to Australia, it was a youth exchange program. It was sponsored by Kemenpora, Kementerian Pemuda dan Olahraga, and also Australian Institute. I forgot what the the right name for that, but yeah. So it was for a youth exchange program. And the second one to when I went to Arizona, it was a scholarship funded by the U.S. Department of State. So you can say I'm like someone who likes to experience global experience, like to go abroad and experience the life in there, studying there, and then meeting new people, learn about the cultures and things like that. So yeah.
So
Thank you
when
for your
on
question. Mhm.
yeah, when on 2010 you just graduate from your senior high school or your college?
No, so I was already 20 years old, 23 years old. I graduated already from my university in 2008. Like that's uh, 2 years after that, I went to Australia because
Okay.
when I was still a university student to get my bachelor's degree, I wanted to apply, but then again, we have to join the program for 4 months. That means we have to leave our study. Then I decided no, I have to wait because the age range to join that program has you have to be 21 to 25 years old. So I'm like, okay, I can wait. I just have to finish my bachelor's degree first, so I will not leave my study and things like that. So yeah, I applied later after I graduated. Well, 2 years after I graduated.
Okay. Thank
Mhm.
you.
Thank you.
Sarah,
So,
do you have questions for Wahyu?
yes, definitely. Because the thing that I would like to know is how did you what is it? Because you said you've been hospitalized and due to the gastric acid. So what did you do to help yourself recover? Like besides medication, so how did you help yourself to recover? Is there some like holistic or something natural? Like did you take natural medicines or something like that that helped you, recover quicker because you want to go back to your children as soon as
Yes,
possible, right?
that's right. Okay, yeah. So I I was sick. It's about 2 months or more than 2 months, maybe three months. Yeah. I came to my doctors and she gave me a medicine, and always that's medicine. I always get those medicines, and I think there was no improvement of my healthy of my conditions. It getting worse, and then I was hospitalized for the first time, and it was 3 days. And after I went home from hospital, it was not better, and yeah, I was getting worse and worse of my condition. And then after that, I changed my doctor, and then I went to I saw my specialist doctor about what is it about in interns
The
internist
internist, an
internist, yeah.
internist you saw, yeah, you
Okay,
saw
yeah.
an internist.
in Yeah, internist. And then he said that there is a gallbladder or something like that. And then he just told me that I have to I have to be hospitalized again. And then I got a complex checkup in the hospital.
Okay.
So yeah, and then after that, okay, that doctor didn't give me anything medicine, yeah, just only one kind of medicine. And he just told me I have to drink more water, warm water, especially warm water. And after that, I have to consume more vegetables, green vegetables. I don't know what is name in English, but in Indonesia
Basically
it's called
healthy
Kelor.
Mhm.
Yeah. So every
Oh,
morning,
moringa.
moringa, yeah. So every morning
Mhm.
I cook kelor, moringa, and
Mhm.
yeah, and then I get better.
Right. So
I'm
maybe
very happy.
it was the first time when you were hospitalized, was the diagnosis like incorrect, or what happened because you came home, uh, then your condition didn't you weren't better, and then it
Okay.
get worse. Yeah, was the diagnosis wrong or something?
I think the diagnosis is the same, yeah, but I don't know why. Just the medicine maybe wasn't right, or I think it was the same with the second doctor and the first doctor about the medicine. I use the same medicine, but the second doctor give me just one or two, and he just told me to drink more warm water. I think
Hmm.
yeah, what is it? Yeah,
Did they tell you why warm water is good for your stomach?
yeah. I don't know. Maybe yeah, it's just God willing or God heal me maybe.
Yes, because you obviously pray. I want to go back to my children. Come get better.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
It's very
Mm.
simple medicine, yeah.
Mm. Mm.
Actually, only warm
Yeah.
water. I thank to
Yeah.
God because yeah, no, I don't have to consume more medicines, yeah. Before every day I consume medicines and always medicines, but it was not better. But now I don't drink any medicine or I don't consume any medicine, but I get better. Never been better.
We're glad to hear that. Thank you so much for sharing. And yeah, and you don't have that problems anymore now, right? And you are
Okay.
well.
Yes.
So yeah, so good. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
sharing.
Thank you, Para and Wayu. I like what Lee asked you two to do, which made it more alive, was he asked you to ask each other questions at the end of the story. Right, Lee? So that's
Yeah.
wonderful to make a story.
Yeah, I want to, because everyone came back into the room and I was asking, because so much of the story exchange is dependent on, it's not just the telling of the story, it's the person asking questions, and it's all of the conversation around the story, right, that happens. So you all got to witness a little bit of what you did actually in your breakout room. So thank you, Farah, and thank you, Wahyu, for sharing a little bit of your stories. And I want to echo Farah's point. We're very glad that you're healthy again. So that's good.
You're welcome.
So, now, what I would like to do is ask two brave people to actually agree, and it would have to be two partners, right? People that were partnered with each other, because we're going to reflect on this at the end. I would like to ask two people to be brave enough to tell their partner's story in the first person as if it is their own. So you're going to take on your partner's story and retell it in front of all of us. And then if there's time, we might get two more in, I don't know, but let's just go with two for now. And then we'll have an opportunity to reflect and ask you some questions about your experience of doing that. So first of all, do we have two brave people that want to grow their wings on the way down after jumping off that cliff? So
Lee, I see Bryant has raised his hand.
Great.
perfect. All right, Brian. But now are you volunteering your partner too? Did you
Make
ask your
sure
partner?
that he or she is open.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure Teacher Maheshi from Sri Lanka would love to share what we have discussed. Right, teacher? I think she's here. Let me just check. Oh, there she is.
Armin, is there any way to pin them next to each other on this screen? Or,
Sure.
Yeah, if you could do that, and then just take your time, right? Take a breath, and one of you can go first, as if you're your partner, and then we're just going to listen. We'll just listen in, and I thank you for your courage. in advance.
No worries, Lee. So, would you like me to start, Teacher Meshi, or
Sure, Brian, you can
I'll
start.
start? Okay. So, this is the story of Teacher Maheshi. By the way, we chose the third prompt. Okay, it's about teaching. So, I'll tell her story in a first person perspective. So, I was a teacher in Sri Lanka. Okay, I was a government teacher, and then I was assigned to a rural or an isolated place where I'm gonna be teaching. We've never heard of that school, and the traveling time will take us 2 hours. So it was really exciting, and I was a bit nervous. And then when we arrive at the actual place where the school is located, we saw three buildings, and there were lots of children's. And actually, I am happy that I'm gonna be teaching in that place, even though the place is so far. Just like what I mentioned, rural, isolated. But then when you are passionate in teaching, place, location, it wouldn't matter at all. So when we are doing our teaching, the students got curious. They asked me, teacher, will you just be here for a day? Are you going to go back again tomorrow to teach us? And that touched me. That is the first sign that I found in this school. That's why when I decided to go back in our house or in our home, I asked my parents that, Mom, Dad, I would love to teach in that school. Even if it's far, even if it's rural, I'm an educator. It wouldn't matter if it's far from us. I would just love to teach. That's it.
Thank you. That's my story. Thank you, Brian, sharing for me. So I have been working 6 years, nearly 6 years for that rural students. So thank you for sharing that story in front of us.
So Mahishi, would you be able to share Bryant's story
Yes,
in the first person?
in first person. So uh, I started my teaching as an online teacher. So I used to teach my students through online. So I have never experienced teach the students in a local setting, in a real classroom setting. So I have been nearly 5 years teaching through online. So I used to do online teaching. So I have never experienced that real classroom. So after that, one suddenly I got chance to teach uh, for real classroom setting. So it was an amazing experience for me. That there's a huge transformation because there's a huge gap between online teaching and the real classroom setting. When compared to other teachers, they had another different story, different experience because they had to teach in the real classroom setting and they had to skip into that online teaching after that pandemic situation. But my story is different because I used to teach through online. But after suddenly I had to teach a real classroom setting. So I was amazed and I struggled to do this and it was amazing experience in the real setting. So I experienced a lot of things with my students in a real setting than online teaching. So that's my story. Then again, because of that pandemic situation, again I had to back for my online usual teaching settings. But that was fantastic teaching in a real classroom. That's my story.
Thank you so much for sharing, both of you. And thank you, Farah and Wahyu as well for sharing. Now, we do have time if two more people want to share a story, and then I want to reflect with all of you about the experience, at least with the four of you that retold, and then we can get a little bit insight from everyone. And I see in the chat box that Brinda was asking Sujit from Nepal if they would like to share. Is that something you would both like to do?
I don't know if Sujit would like me to share his story, because I would like to share his story, but I don't know if he...
Sujit, are you with us or? I'm not sure if.
No, I don't know. So
well, let's do this.
I don't see Sajik in the participant list.
Yeah, and I think Armin is trying to get a train, so I'm trying to unpin people here. If anyone knows how to do that, Ashley. I don't know how to unpin, but let me ask first of all. Let's do this. We just heard two stories, right? And one of the things that we do at Narrative 4, the reflection is very important, the debrief, right? And we always ask our participants what was it like, first of all, to tell your story, right? To think of a story and tell it to a relative stranger, right? Somebody that you probably haven't had much opportunity to meet. And also the other question I want you to think about is what's it like to hold your partner's story and retell your partner's story in the first person as if it's your own. So maybe I could ask you to reflect on that live in front of all of us, if you don't mind. And that's a question for both Bryants. That's a question for both of you. So would you mind reflecting on your experience for us?
Oh, they can't unmute. We'll fix that.
Oh.
Here you go. You can unmute now.
All right, thank you. I think I'll start. Okay. Because I was working before in a call center industry, so it's not hard for me to share stories, to create a conversation. I love to talk. I love to know stories, and I use those stories as an inspiration. So right now, it's not a challenge for me, actually. I love what I heard from Teacher Maheshi. It was really inspirational. I was able to learn from her stories, and I was able to reflect that it's not only Philippines, the country that is having difficulty when it comes to online teaching. Sri Lanka is facing much more difficulty. So it serves as a reflection. So I really love this approach.
Thank you. Thank you. I also see some raised hands. I think Layla.
Yes. Hello.
Hello.
I'm Layla from Morocco. Okay, so just to answer your questions, Lee, concerning the first one, talking about my or telling my stories to other. Actually, I like that, and personally, I like to talk to somebody who telling my stories to strangers. I think it's better sometimes than just telling them to friends. Yeah, because when you are talking to a friend, you know already his shape of mind. But when you are talking to strangers, you don't know what you are going to. Maybe they are going just to listen to you without judging you. And I think that's the aim behind that activity. That's one. Concerning the second question, which is how do you feel when you are in somebody's shoes, meaning hearing his or her story? I think that's it's more humane, because you're thinking about yourself, that you can be in this situation, and it's more humane, because what happened to others can happen to me too. And that's what I liked about this this activity, that storytelling. And I assure you, I'm going to start working with that, with my students, with that. Meaning next week, inshallah. I hope so. And thank you for hearing me.
Thank you. Well, first of all, that makes my heart sing that you want to start doing this story with your students. And I'm in such a good mood after listening to you today that I'm actually, at the end of this, I'm going to share some information with you. I'm actually going to give you the free training, all of you, if you want, which is normally we charge, but I want to give it to all of you because I really want you to bring this back to your schools and your communities and use it. It's an incredible online training. It's about 4 hours, 3.5, 4 hours, and you can learn how to do this and become a facilitator. So anyway, so thank you. But I also see, is it Huada? Your hand is raised. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name.
Huaida, you can go ahead and unmute if you would like.
Okay, can you hear me now? Can you hear me, guys?
Yeah, we can.
Yes, Huwaida, we hear you.
Yes, sure. Concerning what you have already mentioned about somebody else tell your story in his own words, maybe, or in the same words he uses. This reminds me of my grandma. We used to sit around her. She used to be like a guru or the one who coaches us. Here in Egypt, especially in rural communities, people are still having traditions. People, my grandma used to tell us, you can tell me whatever you wish. She was like, the one who you can keep secrets. You can tell whatever you wish to her. This makes me think or consider this approach that when somebody else tells a story, I guess sometimes he needs guidance. So I guess it's like a challenging mission when you hear your students, when you listen to them. They need somebody who has experience, who had experience before. I guess this approach is okay when you leave them to tell whatever they wish. And somebody else tells the same story. But again, my point is that if you can understand me, that the guru has the most significant and important mission. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you so much for sharing. One of the things I heard you say, you were talking about your grandmother, right?
Yeah.
And she had these incredible stories to share with you as a child, right? Or as an adult too. And we do many, many intergenerational story exchanges. The youngest and the oldest person I ever saw in one story exchange who were partnered was an 8th grader. So that would be about 13 years old, and somebody who was 103 years old in a story exchange. And it was the most beautiful transaction I ever saw of stories, and they both learn from each other. There is wisdom regardless of age. But yes, I loved your point about having older people in the room too.
Yeah, experience. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. There's some other hand raised. I think Asma, is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. First of all, thank you for this really wonderful topic. It's really, in the breakout room, I was so excited and really warmed to hear Jim's story. That was really full of great feelings and concerns about his students during the pandemic. It was really so touching. Second thing, I agree with Huwaida. I used to hear my students' story, and sometimes they are true stories, sometimes they are just inventing some stories which are not really true. but at the same time, while you're listening to your students, um, they are there. You are there first to listen to them, and second to give advice, and third to guide them, and sometimes to find solutions for them. And it was really hard as teachers because we do have some limits, and sometimes we come back home with our students' story that reflects on our daily concerns. We also forget our problems and our concerns, and we start just thinking about my students' problem, how to fix it, and it's really hard. Something that I'd like just to mention, as far as I'm concerned, my kids are really get used to hear a story before sleeping, and that's really a wonderful thing. I used to buy some stories and make them to read them, but they prefer to hear them from me, and it's really something which is really interesting and really overwhelming when you're telling your kids stories, and you do have some message that go through that story, and in the morning they stick to the story that you have just tell them last night, and they keep asking some questions related to that story. So you have to get prepared for what they are reflecting often, and it's really amazing. I'm really so happy when I'm telling my kids and even students. Sometimes I'm telling them some stories just to encourage them and to motivate them. That's it. Thank you so much for this.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, and our stories are the thing that we remember. We don't remember all of the data, all of the facts about life, I mean, what we remember is stories. That's how we transmit knowledge very quickly, right? Because it's an experience that we can relate to. Regardless of whether we're from the US or from India, from Israel, from Africa, we can understand stories because it's anchored in emotion, right? We can respect the emotions in other people's stories, even if it's a different place. So I appreciate all of your comments. There are a few more hands. Khadija?
Yes, hi. So I wanted to mention or say that I'm very comfortable talking about my story and telling my story to people, strangers or not. When we had this breakout room, I didn't volunteer. I wasn't brave enough to volunteer and talk about my partner's story for a very particular reason. I didn't feel that I could tell her story in a way that would do it justice. So I can talk about myself and my story, what I've been through, etc. And I think it would be helpful to others. The many, things that happened to me throughout my life back home in my country. I'm from Algeria, but I live in New York City right now. So the transition and the things that I've achieved, etc. I'm very comfortable talking about that, not to brag, but to tell my story and tell people you can do it too. If I did it, you can do it too. And I'm still, evolving. But to tell somebody else's story, I think I would be more comfortable into having a conversation with my partner, and just, tell my story. And it was very interesting because with my partner, we had similar stories. And it was very interesting that we were kind of giggling because we had similar stories. We both mothers. We both had our kids and then went back to school, and through these similarities but differences as well, we can have an exchange and say, oh, I've been through that, I did this, and she would say the same thing or he would say the same thing, and then the differences we would learn from each other. But tell somebody else's story, I feel like I wouldn't do it justice. That's my take on this.
Well,
Lee, I would intervene. We both were partners, and it was such a coincidence that we shared the similar stories, as she said. and we both pursued our education after our we got married, we had babies, and then we pursued our education. And as she's doing well in New York, so am I doing in India. And we became good friends, and we really enjoyed every bit of that conversation. Thank you so much.
We even exchanged phone numbers. So I'm visiting India.
Yeah.
You should come in here to visit me.
Well, I love this because, first of all, I respect massively what you just shared with us about the idea that you don't feel that you could tell your partner's story as well as they could tell it, right? That is an act of empathy too, right? The fact that you wanted to hold your partner's story and do it justice, I think that was the phrase you used, right? That's empathy. That's empathy in action. We never make people retell stories without consent, right? Everything is done by consent. So as long as the partner and you try. But I will say, I want to add one other thing to this. Sometimes we tell our own stories so many times in our heads, right? And out loud, that we only hear our stories one way, right? And sometimes when you're with a partner and you get to hear your story told by somebody else, you learn new things about your story because somebody else captures a thought or an idea or a theme that is new to you even, right? They see something else in your story. So my advice would be one day to take a risk and take a chance and try it and see what happens.
I agree. That's so true.
Also, yeah, and also today you only had 10 minutes. Like it was very quick.
I wanted to mention that. I was like, 5 minutes, that's not enough time for me to grasp, what's happened with her in her life and then take notes. I took a few notes, but I wasn't brave enough to tell her story just for the reason that I've mentioned, not doing it justice. But I think, as you mentioned now, having more time with her and, with somebody and really understand what they've been through maybe a few times and then be able to retell the story. Yes. And it happened to me that exactly what you said, people telling me when I, sometimes didn't feel too confident about myself throughout the years, and friends and family telling me, but you did this and you did that and you did. I was like, yeah, but that's normal. They're like, no, it's not normal. It's an achievement. You have to be aware of it. You have to, be confident in that way. So yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah, and the other thing I would like to give you as a gift, right, or to something to think about is when you hear your story told by somebody else, you have empathy for yourself. We call it me-pathy, right? You switch the E and the M around and it becomes me-pathy, right? Yeah. And sometimes we need that too. We need to respect the stories of our own life. So it gives an opportunity to hear it objectively told. Anyway, we can talk.
True. Thank you.
I think Mandumbe has his hand up.
Hi. Hello, can you hear me? Thank you so much. Yes, this is a very interesting experience because when it comes to telling stories, we most of the time tell our stories to people we trust, or we tell stories to share experience. There are some things that are hidden in our lives, so we tell them to people we trust. So telling her or your story to somebody else means that you take courage and you trust that people, and you share your secret or your experience with him or with her. It is important in a class because it helps to build a classroom community. It fosters also what we call social intelligence. Because if you have in your classroom more than 50 students coming from different areas, having different social and cultural background, if they tell their story, you're putting them together. You're building community, you're building friendship, because you might have in the same class 2 students who share the same experience, and this bring them closer. This bring them closer, and you will build a very strong classroom community. That's why this activity is very important in our classes, mainly in our context here in Senegal. We have overcrowded classrooms. You can have 50 students in a class. They come from different areas and from different social and cultural level. So if they manage to take their courage and share their stories, it would bring them closer, and we would have a very strong classroom community. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hello.
Okay,
Okay.
Joe from Senegal.
Hi,
Hello,
sister.
how are you
you?
doing?
I'm very fine.
Great.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. Just congratulating everybody. This activity is awesome. As Manumbe was saying a while ago, it fosters collaboration and confidence between students, and also foster language skills such as listening and speaking. And it's very great in our context, especially where students refuse, okay, or just don't want to speak. Whenever they have a peer or another students that they trust, they can talk a lot. But I also can't agree more with Khadija. She is right when she says that there are some constraints in the listening activity. You can sometimes miss the words or forget the dates, or perhaps the connection, the network is not okay present sufficiently, so that you have lost some of the details of the story. At that moment, you can't definitely give the right story. You can okay, change the story, the person's story, and perhaps he can feel perhaps okay, not at all agree with what he said. In my case with my with Nadia, we had different stories. She was starting from disappointment to happiness, to enjoyment, to fulfillment. As far as I was totally disappointed, as I was talking about the pandemic, COVID-19, and all all the effects or the negative effects that had on me. And I started with the positive effects as I was talking about online courses, okay, the use of technology in my classes. But the most important part for me was not careful, as I was talking about loss of people, loss of dear people that happened to me during the pandemic. And this was something that has really marked my life. And at that point, I was totally in the other side to Nadia, the one with whom I was sharing our story. Okay, that's what I would like to say. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for sharing. Now, I know there's a lot of hands raised, but I'm also very aware that we only have a few minutes, 3 minutes. And I know that that Jacqueline and I think it's Salome, you had your hands raised for a long time. So maybe if I can give you 60 seconds each just to say, and then I want to share some information with everybody before we leave. So.
Thank you, Lee. My name is Salome. I'm from Vizag. Basically, I will actually make it real short. In 2008, my mother was hospitalized and I was the center. Okay, my mother was hospitalized. She was 70 plus. My dad was around 80 plus. And I had two small children aged 5 and 7. And I was in such a position wherein I had everything at home, but the hospital was around 15 kilometers away. I had to look after my mother, who was attacked with septicemia, as well as she had renal failure. So I had to be in the hospital 24/7. And myself and my husband. So at my home, my children were aged 5 and 7, roughly around 13 years back. And that was a time wherein we did not, although we had a lot of supply, food supply at home, it was like physiological dryness. In fact, I was actually going to a nearby cafeteria and getting food for my mother. But ultimately, we did not have time to eat or not to drink. And back at home, my dad and my children were also suffering. And during those times, we never had the online, what do you call, the Swiggy or the Zomato or the curry points 13 years back. So the story that I would want to tell is, at times you will have a lot, but you will have nothing to eat. Now, today I'm actually relating that story because we have the present COVID scenario. The present COVID scenario wherein the parents are hospitalized, the children are left at home, or the caregivers are hospitalized, the elderly people are at home. Although they may be having money as well as provisions, there's nobody to provide for them. At times when the online catering services and all are at a lockdown. Now, it's a kind of a testing a situation for me, which actually made me rethink as well as revisit this particular hospital scenario. And today, I actually help many families come out of tight situations with whatever I can actually offer them. Only when you go through a difficult situation will you actually understand the other person's situation. So this particular aspect of storytelling, when I actually relate my story to a larger audience, ultimately they will actually learn and actually sense the seriousness of the other families, especially families which are hospitalized, the trauma of the dependents, the trauma of the elderly people and the younger people at home, whether they have anything to eat or what am I doing? I have eyes to see, hands to serve, but what am I doing? This actually, when we actually relate, when we actually hear to the stories around, that actually triggers us from within. It makes us sensitive and sensible to our nearby surroundings, and that actually enables us to act. Okay, you asked me to make it short. I made it shortly. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much. And I appreciate you sharing your traumatic experience. And you're right. And I love the last phrase that you left us on was, when you share your stories and you get to share your empathy, then people will act, right? You act on behalf of somebody else. That's the beauty of our stories. So keep telling your story, and more people will act. And I think Jacqueline, maybe Jacqueline, you get the last participant word, and then I'll close out.
Okay, hi. Well, I would say that the importance for us as teachers, tell the students our stories. When I talk about family with my students, I always start my class talking about my story with my family, because the system shows a project, I don't know, of family that most of them don't have in their houses. Mother and father and the kids, they don't have it. And they think many times that the teacher is perfect. They think that we have this perfect reality, and we don't. So I share with my students that I was left by my father, for example, and he got very near with me because they said, teacher, your father left, my father left too. I live just with my mother, just as you. So we can create this empathy environment and the safe environment in classroom, talking about our stories to our students. So I'm not, and tell them that they don't need to be afraid of tell their stories, and they need to be proud of their stories, because we are the result of our stories. That's it.
Thank you, Jacqueline. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, you're so true. The idea that your students have to see you as a human being, right? They have to see themselves in you and your stories too, and you have to see yourself in their stories too. Students, like there's a famous saying that says students don't care about how much you know as a teacher. They can only do that. They only care when they know how much you care, right? So that's what you do. You share stories in the class, you build community, it's positive school climate, and they are seen, and you are seen as a human being, because sometimes teachers are seen as a power figure, you know, not as a human being. So thank you for sharing. So I would like, just to close a little bit, I'm watching the chat box, and there are a lot of people talking about art and using artwork and stories. We have hundreds of resources for you where you can infuse art and pictures depending on the age of your students. There's more than one way to tell a story, right? And maybe, Armin, if you could share the slide deck, just go to the last slide, I can share our information. Hopefully you're still with us, Armin. Or Louise.
I can share it, Lee. I'll put it up.
Oh, thanks, Ashley. So here's our information, right? And as I said earlier, I'm going to offer all of you the training, which I'm going to offer to you for free. If you email us, right, and my email I'm going to put in the chat box again. All right, I'm going to put it to everyone. It's just lee@narrative4.com. I'm very inspired by all of you. That's why I'm in such a good mood right now. It's a great start to my Sunday. So there's my email address. This is Ashley's, right? I'm putting it in the chat box. And if you email us, we will give you the information where you can get trained. You can join us for any online event for free, right? And I will give you the tools and all of the resources, and you will become part of this incredible global community of teachers that you will make friends for life. And as you do this work, and it will improve your teaching and the climate, the positive climate in your classrooms. And it's all through story, one story at a time, you know? I think that's it, right? Ashley, I would like Ashley to have the last word. You can close us out.
Oh gosh. Yeah, no, thank you guys for giving us the opportunity to be with you today. You're such an amazing group. What a joy to be on a call with folks from truly all over the world and hear your passion for teaching, for education. And you're just so engaged in this idea of storytelling. And so we appreciate your engagement as well, and doing this little mini exchange with us this morning. So you see here on the last slide, quick, easy steps to becoming a Narrative 4 facilitator, connecting, as Lee said, with our global community. So please don't hesitate to reach out to either one of us, and we'd love to get you guys connected even further with Narrative 4. So I'll stop sharing now. And again, just thank you, Louise, and thank you, Armin, for having us here today.
Thank you so much to Lee and Ashley. This was amazing. This was amazing. I think we all really enjoyed it. There's a link in the chat to leave some feedback for our speakers. Please don't forget to do that. That helps them. And also, please reach out to them. This was a really cool experience today, and they're giving all of you an amazing next step to do for free. So you want to take advantage of that and share it with your schools and your communities. So I think that's all. Thank you so much, everyone. We hope whatever time it is that you go and enjoy the rest of your morning, your afternoon, your evening. We really appreciate it, and just send some positive thank yous and amazing vibes for Ashley and Lee. That was an incredible presentation.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Have a
Thank
nice
you.
day.
It was amazing.
Thank you, Lee. Thank you, Ashley.
Thank you
You
so
take a group
much.
photo. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lee.
Oh,
Thank you,
everyone,
Mr.
Armin's
Lee.
gonna take a group. Everyone's gonna. We're gonna take a group
Thank
photo.
you
So
so
please
much,
get a
Okay.
time.
Lee
Bye.
and Armen
Come
and
Au
on.
revoir.
Bye-bye.
Ashley.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Merci à vous
Bye
tous.
bye, everybody. Thank you.
Stay safe. Stay
Thanks
well.
a lot.
Okay, have a safe
Hey, John.
day.
Goodbye.
Hey,
Bye.
goodbye.
Bye-bye.
This is not our last session. We still have Tuesday.
David,
Don't worry.
David, goodbye.
Bye bye.
And
Bye,
Bye.
David. Muhammadu.
Bye bye, Mahmoud.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Take care, everyone. Thank you, Lee. And they'll give you more information on how to get trained as a facilitator. We'll have them email you, right, Lee and Ashley, so that you want to follow through with that. It would be a great
Ano
opportunity.
da? Popoy da.
Yeah, Kwakobeda. Okay.
Bye, everyone. Bye.
Bye. Stay well.
Okay, bye-bye. Salama.
Salama. Let's see, global.
Goodbye, everyone. Lots of love from Nepal.
Thank you, Sujit. I think you can close the meeting, Lee, because I made you the host.
Okay, I'm going to close it out. All right, bye, everyone. Here it comes.